And now, Jacob, if you'd like to go up and share with us your stories.
Ani hanap chugig Jacob Butler. Ani hanap O'odham. How are you? My name is Jacob Butler. I'm Uncle O'odham from Salt River. So I was raised in the Salt River, Pima, Maricopa Indian community, but that's not what we call ourselves. We are known as the Pima and the Maricopa, but we call ourselves the O'odham and the Pipash. We're two distinct and separate cultures that reside in the same community. Oh. So we're two distinct and separate cultures, and we live in the same community. The O'odham are one, and the Pipash are the other. So when the first Spanish travelers came to our land, they asked us what our name was, and not understanding their language, we said something to the effect of Sapamach, which means I don't understand you or I don't know. And so ever since then, we've been known as the Pimas. But our name reverts to the people. So in English, it translates to the people. The word Pipash for the human tribe that's known as the Maricopa also means the people. And most cultures around the world, their name reverts to the people. And so we're no different. Well, the image here is my home. This is what I wake up to every morning. We come from the land of the Hashan or the saguaro. And our land extends all the way to those mountain ranges in the back. Today our community is about 57,000 acres. 35,000 of that is designated for preserved land. So we have land that we can still practice our cultural traditional heritage on an area that doesn't have power lines or stop signs or roads. And so it's a blessing. I get to travel a lot for my job and for things like this, and I'm very grateful and blessed to be here. But like it says, the Hohokam is my home, so the land of the Salt River is always going to be my home. Even today, I miss it. I miss being home. I miss being with my people. But I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to see other places. And I put this picture in here because this is Red Mountain, and this is overlooking the river that we're named after, the Salt River people. And that area there is where the original canals that fed all of the Salt River Valley started. And so there was over 1,000 miles of canals and over 100,000 acres of food being grown about 2,000 years ago. And that same water system feeds the valley today. So at home, I'm not an artist. I'm not known as an artist, I should say. I'm more known as the garden guy. I get paid to play in the dirt, plant seeds. I'm always walking around with dirt on my shoes and dirt on my knees, and so everybody knows me more as the garden guy or Dr. Green Thumbs. So to most people, the art that I do is on the side of my job. But I work through the Cultural Resource Department, and I'm very privileged to be able to work in a position that I get paid to practice a culture that I would practice every day of my life without the job. And so I'm very grateful to do that. But in addition to doing my job, we work around a vast wealth of knowledge of our cultural heritage. And a lot of our peers are 20, 30 years older than me. And so we get to do a lot of the setup and breakdown of some of the events that are held with the language program, our museums. We even work with the Cultural Preservation Office. And so being around that has really influenced me in my own work and my life. And so if I'm not in the garden playing in the dirt, I'm at home playing with dirt. So these are some examples of my work, but I'm a painter, I do traditional work, but I'm more known for making pottery. And we practice a style of pottery that's known as the paddle and anvil technique. It's something that not most cultures do. And today there's only a few of us that still continue that tradition. We come from a community of just about 10,000 people. My teacher and best friend, myself and a few others are the only people that are still continuing that tradition today. And together with my friend, he teaches classes and I assist him in those classes. So here's a few examples of my work. The pottery on the far right, on your far left, I should say, sorry, is an effigy, and it's actually a collaborative piece between my teacher and myself, and so he makes the vessel. His name's Ron Carlos, he makes the vessel. I sculpt the arms and the legs, sculpt the face, paint it, and give it back to him, and he fires it. So it's like a true collaboration between the teacher and myself. The image in the center is a kamkajud, or a desert tortoise. It's actually a white vessel with a red clay paint. And then the designs on the top, for me, they reflect water. And a lot of my imagery that I use is water, because we're the river people. And then the far left, the far right, excuse me, is a pot that is both depicting a squash and a snake pattern, so I call it my garden pot. And then down where the examples portion is, that's one of the ways that we fire our pots. So there's actually pots in that tub right there firing on the ground. Traditionally, we would fire in large broken oyas, and we would pack our pots inside those oyas, the pot sherds from the oyas, and then we would fire the same exact way. But as my teacher likes to brag, we don't break very many pots to have the resource to do it that way. What brought me here today was the kokok, or these shells. We call them kokok. They come from the Kach, or the ocean. And even though we live in the middle of the desert, we have a very intimate and deep tradition of traveling to the ocean to gather salt and these shells. And there even existed trail systems all the way from our community in the central Arizona to the Sea of Cortez that were depicted, or that were marked by depictions of shells in petroglyph form. So our ancestors, the Hohokam, they're regarded as the first people in the world to ever etch any type of shell with an acid. And so the acid that they used was saguaro wine. They would get the fermented juices of the saguaro fruit, and they would etch shells with them. And so this is a tradition that is well known. It's a tradition that a lot of our people talk about, but nobody does it. The tradition started about 1,400 years ago, and it lasted for about 400 years. And then it disappeared entirely. Our use of shell has gone back for time immemorial, and we still continue to use shell today. We just don't etch them. So it's a traditional art form that's been lost, but definitely not forgotten. There's a few of us that are trying to bring it back, and I'm one of them. I would like to say that I taught myself, but it's from being around other people. Even if at the time I didn't know I was learning, this knowledge is knowledge of our people. It's not mine. It's something that I learned from our people and something that I'm trying to pass on. So here's a few examples. This is a conch shell, or I believe it's actually a Melangias bacillata, and the entire shell is adorned with river designs on the interior and the exterior of the shell. This is the birds in flight. I put this picture in here because you can see the irregularity of the shell. So depending on the density of the shell, the acid will etch it, and it'll actually make pits. So there's softer and harder areas in that shell, and it etches at a different rate. And so that's a true indication that it was done in that traditional way. This picture is of a gyoho, or a burden basket, and the woman that's carrying it. But the reason I put that in there is you can see up in the center towards the right, there's actually a stain. And the hashanawait, or the saguaro wine, will actually stain your shell. So I soak it for a while, and I take most of the staining out, but it's always, to me, it's always beautiful to leave a truth mark anyways, and it shows that it was done in that way. And then if you look at the pattern behind the designs that I placed on there, the shells already have a pattern ingrained in themselves, and it's beautiful in itself, and so it adds another depth of character to the shells. Traditionally, the shells that are this size, these Lavicardium are about 6 inches by 5 inches, if not a little bigger. They were used to drink with, and so they were never made into necklaces or anything like that. And that's something that I'm doing now. It's a contemporary version. And so this one depicts the O'odham Juvat, or our lands, and the way that we are. So it gives respect to the animals, our people, and our culture, the land, the rain, and then the water designs below, to me, represent the O'odham and the Hohokam. So the fact that we are the descendants of the Hohokam, and there is a continuum there. Sometimes I'm tasked or requested to create works for title holders or award winners, and this one I was actually very privileged and grateful to do it for Miss Daryl J. I'm sorry the caption says 2012, but it was actually 2010, Miss Indian Arizona, and that piece is about 6 inches by 6 inches. It's a fairly large shell. So one of the conflicts I have is I do a lot of demonstrating and I do a lot of sharing, and I have a tendency to give a lot of things away. So I don't really make a lot of money making my artwork, but for me it's more, for me it's about sharing who we are as a people, informing other people about the rich diversity of our community, and passing on a legacy that'll live a lot longer than me for my children. And so I have works in a few different collections, and I feel proud that my daughters and my son can request to see their father's work. So to me, that means a lot. So here's a few current works in progress. That shell is actually going to be turned into a bracelet. And for me, because I work in so many different mediums, I kind of work in circles. So one idea that I'd have in ceramics may be expressed in shell, and vice versa. I'll put down a piece at the beginning of the year, and I probably won't get back to it till the next year. And so my ideas are always changing. My pieces are always turning into something else, and I always try to progress in what I do by learning new forms of art that I can incorporate into traditional design. And just like this is a shell frog, or a bobbit. And it's actually one of the same shells that I etched, like the one above it. It has over 300 tiles of turquoise and one piece of argillite in it, and it was all done by hand on sandstone. And I'd like to thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about my people's history, and I welcome any questions when we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.